With more, let's bring in our journalist panel. Marcia McLeod is with the Globe and Mail. Catherine Levesque is with the National Post. Hello to the two of you.
Hello.
Hi.
Marcia, I'm going to get you to start us out here because the premiers are repeating really the same ask as we heard back in November when a meeting of health ministers did not resolve anything, really. So, as we heard from Freeland, this for the federal government is more than just about dollars. It's also what Ottawa likes to call accountability. Why haven't the provinces met that demand if they're looking for more money?
It's a really good question, and it's one today that the premiers dodged during the press conference. Their repeated perspective was that they're accountable to their voters. And again, as you mentioned, Health Minister Duclos said as well that money is really not the only reason that the healthcare system is in crisis. But again, those premiers are demanding a meeting with the Prime Minister in January, looking for an increase in transfer payments with no conditions, and the federal government is really saying that they're not going to follow that line.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know, Catherine, as the squabble over money continues, we are seeing a healthcare system tearing really at the seams. Millions of Canadians without a primary care physician, long wait times in emergency rooms, pediatric cases of respiratory ailments really just skyrocketing right now. Can Ottawa ignore, even if their demand is not being met, can Ottawa really ignore these demands for more funding?
I wouldn't say ignore, but I think, yes, right now Ottawa can kind of, for lack of a better term, sit back and kind of observe what is going on. I mean, Ottawa has been there, let's be clear, has been giving billions of dollars to the provinces during COVID. I think, obviously there's a crisis right now. I think they're open to giving more money, but right now what we're seeing is really a feud on the political side. And I think the mood, the public mood, certainly, and the political mood is kind of shifting a little bit because more and more people are seeing that provinces have surpluses. They have a lot of money. They can certainly invest in their healthcare system, and Ottawa sees it too. The other thing is that also the provinces are not, in fact, there have been talks with the provinces, with the health ministers, and Jean-Yves Duclos, in the last few months, he, unfortunately realized that this was more of a political issue, and now the premiers kind of stressed that today, that they don't want to talk with Duclos. They want to talk directly with the Prime Minister. However, I think Ottawa right now is kind of, again, asking for a bit more accountability. I think they put some water in their wine as to what they were asking for at first because they wanted more strings attached. Now they're just, asking for a shared database. They're asking for national norms in terms of the workforce. So it's getting more and more reasonable, but certainly I think it's time now the provinces put a little bit more water in their wine. And, for the Prime Minister to finally agree to sit at the table. But I don't know if it will happen before the budget, which is what their ask is right now.
Mm-hmm. And as you say, they are asking for more funding once the budget's actually tabled. So something we're going to keep watching in the weeks ahead. Now, Catherine, I'll stay with you because I also want to talk about China today. We saw the federal government unveil new strategies on critical minerals and foreign investment this week alone. National security, one concern that's being factored into both these announcements. Now, China was not mentioned specifically, but how big of a role does China actually play in these considerations?
A huge role. I think the message right now is that Canada is no more Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, we're, all the strategies that have been unveiled are unveiled with China in mind. We're more and more recognizing that it is a disruptive power. And really, it really speaks to this shift that is happening right now because, look, in the last mandate, certainly, Justin Trudeau, I think, was inspired by his father. I think he was hoping to get to have a nice relationship with the Chinese government as his father did. There were even talks in 2017 to potentially have a trade deal. That has completely changed. I think, the message now, the key message that we're hearing from the Prime Minister and from ministers is that they're, dealing with China with eyes wide open. So that's the message right now. And even though China isn't explicitly mentioned, that is certainly one of the countries that they're looking out for, and they want to make sure that China is protected. And so it certainly speaks to the shift right now happening in government.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about this, Marcia, is despite these policies that are really, again, meant to boost national security, we also saw the revelation this week of an RCMP contract that went to a company that has ties to China. In fact, more than that, its parent company is facing espionage charges in the United States. Talk to us about the reaction that story got in Ottawa and kind of the movement it has essentially inspired.
Well, it's certainly not been a good reaction. Conservative MP Michael Barrett has said he has a lot of concerns about this. He referred to a fox in charge of the hen house, and he was saying that he really wants to find out how this happened in the first place. And I think that is one of the central questions. How did this happen, and what are the RCMP's vetting processes during procurement to be able to avoid this happening again? I think that even in terms of Canada's policy on China, in a lot of ways, it has been sort of poked and prodded along a little bit by the U.S., who definitely is a few steps ahead. And just in this instance, the U.S. had blacklisted this company's the parent company in 2001. So I think it raises a lot of questions about why Canada had not already done that, if that is something that may be in the works. The particular contract in question has been suspended, but no word yet whether it's going to be ultimately canceled. And maybe even just more broadly, I think it brings up that this is not the first time that there has been uproar over a RCMP contract. I mean, I think certainly Clearview AI comes to mind. There were concerns raised earlier this year about a spyware contract that the RCMP has, with whom it's refused to disclose who the specific contractor is. So this isn't necessarily a new conversation for the RCMP.
Now, that's not the only controversy that we saw this week, because we should also talk about the gun bill, Marcia, the Liberal gun bill, because, you know, the Assembly of First Nations, they did add their opposition against the bill as they wrapped up their conference this week. And it all goes to that amendment added after the initial bill was actually passed in second reading, in fact, in the House. Marcia, what was the thinking of adding that amendment at such a late stage?
I really wish I knew the answer to that question, because it certainly caused enormous uproar. It has the federal government, or the Liberal government, on its heels, responding to what has been enormous backlash from Northern premiers, even from members of Liberal MPs as well. In particular, Brendan Hanley stepped out and said he doesn't support this bill. It's an MP representing Yukon. The Premier of Yukon said to me today that he doesn't support it, and because one of the main things is the amendments to the bill have really broadened its scope, and experts say that some of the newly prohibited guns don't even necessarily fit the government's own definition for what's an assault-style weapon, and it's going to target weapons that are very common with hunters, like the SKS. And so I don't necessarily know what the government can do at this point to cool this uproar, other than say maybe we'll scrap the amendment. Trudeau has said he's not open to negotiating the definition of an assault-style weapon, but they're open to fine-tuning. That's the word he's been using, fine-tuning the actual list of weapons that are prohibited. The government has added, or there's been 2 committee meetings added to kind of debate these very late-minute amendments. So we'll see what happens with that, but certainly this is not going to be wrapped up by the end of before the winter break.
Yeah, and Catherine, that was actually the point I wanted to raise with you, because as we heard from Marcia here, the bill will not be passed before the sitting actually ends next week. But is the bill itself now in trouble because of this amendment?
Well, certainly there has been a lot of uproar. I wouldn't say it is in danger as of right now, because something that also happened this week that kind of passed a little bit under the radar is the fact that the Bloc Québécois is actually quite open to supporting this amendment if they have a bit more clarity on what that involves, and if, of course, it doesn't hurt hunters and farmers and Indigenous peoples, of course. So listen, I think it's quite obvious that the NDP has a lot of frustration towards the bill. The Conservatives also, of course. But I think, in this case, the partner for the Liberals might be actually the Bloc Québécois, and they could have a majority to pass this. Now, how are they going to do that? Well, something that was agreed this week is in fact, it was a Bloc member who raised the question of having more independent witnesses or experts to talk about what is an assault rifle, an assault style weapon, and what should be in this list. So the Liberals, the NDP, and Bloc members on the Parliamentary Committee on Public Safety that is looking at this right now actually are asking for a special meeting to actually agree for future meetings. So there seems to be a bit more openness on that. So maybe that's what we might see in the next week and moving forward after Christmas. There will be more consultation, but I think, again, like Marcia said, the Liberals are committed to staying with this definition. I think now it's more about fine-tuning the list and really making sure that that this list does not affect the hunters and all the people who have been complaining about the amendment.
Yeah, and without a doubt, Canadians right across the country watching this very closely, both in urban and rural settings. So we'll watch it very closely. But for now, Catherine Lévesque, Marcia McLeod, really thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.